Hello, my name is Athenia Rodney, CEO and founder of Juneteenth NYC. This is a special invitation for you to attend with Juneteenth NY. We're thrilled to announce that this year's celebration promises to be bigger and better than ever before. Join us for an unforgettable experience filled with a wide array of exciting performances, delightful vendors, mouth-watering food trucks and vendors, an exclusive fashion show, a rally at Barclays Steps, a free bus ride with health drink tastings. Don't miss that. For those of you with little ones, don't worry, we've got you covered also. Juneteenth NY 2023 is the event for all ages. We'll be featuring a dedicated kids zone so that your young ones can join in on the fun. So why wait? Grab your free tickets. Yes, free. It doesn't cost anything, but we do need you to register so that we can prepare for the amount of people that will be in attendance on the weekend. So we look forward for you to go to our website at www.juneteenthny.com, or you can go to our Instagram at JuneteenthNY, like us, follow us, engage with our page. We love to see you participating. It warms my heart. Trust me, it does. And then go to our link tree and you'll get a direct link to register. This will be a monumental occasion. We can't wait to see you there. Thank you and have a good one.
All right. Hey, community, welcome back. If you took a break or if you had stepped away, and if not, just sitting here being patient for the next guest to come on, we appreciate you. And up next, we have Shawnee Benton Gibson. And her conversation today will be Words and Wombs Create Worlds, the Black Maternal Health Crisis. Shawnee is a forerunner in the fight against the rate of Black maternal health dropping in our mothers surviving and being here with us. This is my mentor and my coach who lost her daughter to this exact topic in the fall of 2019 after Shawnee Gibson gave birth to her second child 2 weeks after. So during this conversation, you'll get to hear all about that. You'll get to hear what you can do to be a part of this fight. So please sit back, relax, and pay attention during this segment.
I want to name some folk before I go deep into this talk. I want to acknowledge Jill and her womb. And I want to acknowledge the womb that Jill came from, which is Joyce. So I salute Joyce's womb. And I want to acknowledge the womb that Joyce came from, which was Cheney or Mary's womb. And I want to acknowledge the womb that Cheney came from, which was Trellis's womb, whose name I took on just last year because she said so as an ancestor. And I want to also acknowledge Trellis's womb and acknowledge the womb she came from, which was Grandma Finney. I don't know the names after. It doesn't matter because I know that a womb, inside of a womb, inside of a womb, inside of a womb, inside of a womb, I don't have to know. But I know right here because I have a womb and they're all connected. So I want to invite you to take a moment to think about the wombs that manifested you. I want you to take a moment to think about the person who took time and energy, may not have made it to 9 months, may not have pushed you out through that powerful canal, right? May have got a C-section. You might have come early, but she did that. And here you sit. Powerful stuff. So I acknowledge that. And I want to also say that my talk is about something that is painful, but I'm going to invite you not to feel sorry for me. There is nothing to feel sorry for because I'm operating from my purpose. So my talk is partly about my daughter, Shawnee Makiba Gibson, who passed away at age 30 due to a birth-related pulmonary embolism. Big word for a blood clot, right? She passed away 14 days after giving birth to my grandson, Kari. And her baby girl was 2 years old when her mother transitioned. So when crowds are like, oh, I'm like, wait, that's not the end. My daughter lived 11,248 days. And that day of death does not have the final word. This talk is about wombs and words because they create worlds. This talk is about the inequity that exists. In the United States, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die doing the most natural thing they could ever do, which is bring new life into the world. What is that about? And because my talk is about words, I'm going to tell you straight talk. It's about racism, structural. It's about racism, systemic. It's about white supremacy culture. Oh my goodness. My talk is about wombs and words. Oh my goodness. So that little girl died. She passed away. She transitioned. And at her homegoing service, which is my word, my people's word for funeral, I chose to stand before the 1,000 people in the space and those who were watching because, like Mamie Till, it's like the world needs to know she died and that it was a preventable death. So I wanted everybody who could look that day or another day to have the opportunity to see this life that was led and then also see the tragic loss of a woman who was about the business of manifesting all the time. My daughter had 2 businesses. She was an artist, unapologetic. She did installation. She did hair. She worked with her hands and she did it well. She was the only person on the planet that could check her mama and like really, really check her mama. And I was like, all right. You know, even from the grave, she's still checking her mama. So when I think about that, I'm proud of that. But I think about all of the other women who have passed that don't necessarily have businesses or didn't get an education. And I'm like, they deserve to have their names spoken too. When I went to the March on Washington and spoke about Black maternal health, I spoke her name in the name of many other women. Dope women. But what about the women that are on drugs, right? What about the women whose children were taken away because she didn't have adequate housing or, she had a mental health issue? What about the women who slept with 50 men and so what? They deserve equity, right? They don't have to have a college degree or to have businesses or to be well known in community to receive equitable care when they are going in to prayerfully have a baby safely. We can't guarantee that because once again in the United States, we're 3 to 4 times more likely, if you look like me, not to make it. And many of those deaths are preventable. Words can shake me to the core, but they've been there for me all of my life. As a little kid, when I would be like, why is grandma acting that way? Or, did such as, he's drunk. I would get my ass kicked. I would, but it never stopped me. So when on October 11th, which was the birthday of my daughter's mate, because we were so committed to making sure that her homegoing was powerful, so we did it on his birthday. So when she laid in her casket and everybody was gathered, I'm like, I'm taking this mic. I will not roll on the floor. I will not pull her out of the coffin. Y'all have seen it, right? Fainting, hell no. That girl would haunt me. It's like, Ma, don't embarrass me. Do not embarrass me. So I stood and I delivered. And you know what they said, words. She's in shock. She doesn't know what happened. She's going through. But when it hits her, I'm like, that's what you pray for me? Words. No, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I'll cry later. Today I will teach. Today, that girl that lived the life that she lived, we will make sure that her life is known about and that nobody else has to die like this. Words. When she said she couldn't breathe, they told her, oh, you need to rest. You need to get off your feet. She died of a pulmonary embolism. Anybody who knows anything about that, that was the worst advice you could have ever given. But my family rallied. We know what to do. Cooked up something. Not me, because I'm not a cook. But other people gathered together, made food. She laid up, and it made the condition worse. One of the things I'm so happy about, is that I was there. I was there when my baby came out and cried for the first time, and I was there when she breathed her last breath. I know for damn sure that if I wasn't there and someone called me and said, Shawnee died, you might not see me on this stage. Not because I took my life, but I would be so devastated by that. Someone else was there for her final rite of passage, but her mama was there. I heard her final words. You know what they were? I'm bleeding out. She wasn't. She had a C-section. But in the delirium and the shock, that's what she thought was happening to her. And now that I think about it, she was. This country bled her out. The implicit bias, the discrimination, the microaggressions. You're smart for a black girl. You're pretty for a black girl. That bled her out. The final words at the hospital, she's in grave condition. I'm like, yeah, her condition was kind of grave when she came out the womb as a black girl, because that's the way this society works. The final words, we're going to call it. You called it before she even made it to kindergarten, if you really want to be honest. Final words, she's gone. Nah, because we're a spiritual family. She's here right now. She said, put on the yellow, Ma. Wear the fancy fly earrings, Ma. Tell them like it is, Mom. Make them listen, Mom. Make them remember that black wombs create worlds. And so that's what I'm doing today. I am so grateful that you are all here listening. I love words. I love them to my core. I would read books and they would say the end, and I'm like, nah, I'm going to write a new ending. That's just who I am. And today I speak truth as I understand it as a black woman. And I invite you to take in the truth that there are women dying as I stand that look like me. And part of the reason why is because we are willfully ignorant in this country, willfully and woefully. And we have no right to keep it going. COVID was a pause so that we can look and see. Yes. And now that we see, what the hell are we going to do? Right? Because looking is not enough. Words without action to fuel the revolution is just talking. It's like tinkling sound with no meaning to it. So tonight, I think about the words and I think about what I want to leave you with. I think about the fact that the segment that I'm in right now was called Expand, and that's by divine intervention, because my mantra for living is I expose myself to expand myself. And that's a hard life. That's a very hard life. I'm sad to say that on the continuum, my daughter's death was not my only trauma as it relates to reproductive health. I've released pregnancies, words, released, not aborted, not terminated, released pregnancies. I've experienced preterm labor and almost died. I gave birth to a premature child that had a duodenal atresia, stomach and intestines not connected, and all the while was going through severe postpartum depression and having delusions, and no one asked me a damn thing about how I was doing. Could have died, thought about killing myself and taking my baby's life, white-knuckled it, maybe I black-knuckled it through the process, and I'm still standing. Then all 3 of my pregnancies experienced postpartum, kept pushing through, because that's what I do. And then when my daughter died, I thought because I had knowledge that I was already an activist in reproductive health, that she would be spared. Do y'all know knowledge, the word, is not enough? Someone said earlier, and it's said all the time, when you know better, you do better. I'm like, nah. When you do better, you do better. Knowing is not enough. We know a lot of things, and they don't shift anything. So I implore you today to take action based on what I'm saying. I want you to think about that in Georgia and Louisiana. And where I come from in New York, it was 12 times more likely, but now it's 8 times more likely for someone that looks like me and some of you in the audience, or your daughters or your granddaughters, to die giving birth. Find out the statistics in your state. And don't believe the hype. If your state is one that they have a low rate, check and see how many black folk live there. Why am I saying that? Because it's important. In Vermont, there's hardly any deaths. Y'all laughing because I don't have to say anymore. So, I want to share something. I'm going to geek out for this final moments that I have. I love words. And I'm a nerd. I love homophones. I love them. I love them. And for those who are not really into that, they're words that sound the same, but have different spelling and meaning. And so tonight, to close out, I want to share 3 of those words with you. Right, R-I-T-E. Right, R-I-G-H-T. Right, W-R-I-T-E. So, I want to restore the ritual where granny midwives catch the babies and hold them up and declare them to spirit, whatever that means for you. I want to restore the rituals where we honor, and I would have done it tonight, but it slipped my mind, but I'm coming back to it. Before I even started the talk, ask who's the eldest in this space? And can I have permission to begin from you? Because we've been talking all day. Who asked the elders if we could? Nobody. I want to restore the rituals of making sure that mom is good. Good food, back rubs, like all the good stuff, right? I want to restore the rituals of using herbs and not commodifying birth or medicalizing birth, but restoring it to its right order. Being pregnant is not a medical condition. It's not a sickness, so why are we at hospitals? And I'm not knocking them, but we can do it at home and at birthing clinics. Ritual, alignment, restoration, and right, policies, procedures. But it's not enough because you have to do work around anti-racism to actually apply them and not repeat the same thing over and over again. Write stories, put stories to the statistics. It's so important. Speaking the names, writing the names, not just my daughters, but the woman who lives in a place where she doesn't have a lot, the woman that struggles with her addiction. Her womb matters too, and so do her babies. And the final one, right? R-I-G-H-T. Reproductive rights, which are human rights. Righting the wrongs. Telling the true story about the granny midwives and what happened to them and how they criminalized them for doing what was before beneficial for those that are part of the dominant culture. Right, right, right. And I'm going to implore you once again to do what is right. Don't walk out of here and say that was a great talk. I don't need it. Walk out of here talking to someone about what you heard. Don't believe me? Check the stats. Look at the story. They just did a whole bunch of research and statistical data on reproductive outcomes in this country. We're doing abysmally. Nice multisyllabic word, syllabic. Somebody say it for me. Syllabic, multisyllabic word. So, wombs and words. I thank you for all the wombs that are present in this space. I thank you for the words you thought in your head and those that you will speak when we move from this space, because I trust and believe that you'll take that on. And I just thank you for being. And I want you to value the being of Black, Indigenous people of color. Because when they produce, because Black lives matter and Black wombs matter, boy, this world is going to transform. But we got to make sure that they survive and not miss out, right? On the opportunity to live and give and be purposeful. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Shawnee of Live On New York. I'm a Community and Government Affairs Liaison. Today, we're going to be discussing faith and organ donation. Live On New York is a federally designated organ procurement organization. We are also a nonprofit. And with a renewed vision and mission to achieve a zero transplant wait list, Live On New York, under the leadership of our new president and CEO, Linnea Chan, had a record-breaking year in 2022. We were named one of Crain's 2022 Best Places to Work in NYC. More than 1,000 organs were transplanted. We were able to achieve a 33% increase in the number of organ donors. We increased the number of tissue donors by 32%. But we by no means did this on our own. We facilitated these amazing strides in collaboration with our hospital partners, our priceless Live On New York staff, and the selfless sacrifices of our organ donor heroes. But our work is far from over, which is why we're here today. There are many barriers to organ donation. One of them is faith. So again, that is why we are here today. And we have invited some very amazing panelists to help us discuss this concern and barrier to organ donation for Live On New York. We have Reverend Dr. Kimberly Jones, who is also a donor grandmother and volunteer for Live On New York. Thank you so much for being here with us, Dr. Jones. We have, did I say donor mother or donor grandmother? If I said donor mother, I meant donor grandmother. My apologies.
I believe you said grandmother.
I did say grandmother. I have to make sure I addressed you properly. We also have Dr. Jones' husband, Minister Jones, our donor grandfather. We have Renee Maskell, who is a senior hospital services specialist here at Live On New York. We have her counterpart, Don Campbell, who is also a hospital services specialist here at Live On New York. I would like to start with one of the most moving stories of donation that I've come across in my very short time here at Live On New York, and that is the story of Jaleel. And I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jones and Minister Jones to please briefly share that story.
Thank you so much, Shawnee. I'm very honored to just talk about our grandson, Jaleel. Jaleel lived to be 43 years old on this earth. A wonderful young man, brought joy in everyone's lives. And on his 37th day of this time on earth, he stopped breathing. And we rushed him to the hospital. They were able to resuscitate him. And for a week, we were there at the hospital just praying and hoping that some miracle happened. And the end, the miracle did happen. We said our goodbyes to Jaleel on that Saturday. And that Saturday evening, we got a wonderful phone call to tell us that our superhero donated and was able to save the lives of two wonderful children. One, a young boy who was about Jaleel's age, received a heart, and a little girl received Jaleel's liver. And from that day on, it gave me a different look and insight on what becoming a donor grandfather would look like and become. So our superhero was definitely a superhero that day.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And I just wanted to add, he's 43 days old, not years. So about 5 weeks old. And he was the son of our daughter, Katrina Erskine, who was only 18 at the time and had to really make a big decision for an 18-year-old.
And I do believe that one of the babies that Jaleel saved went on now 20 plus years and is a parent now, had a baby of her own.
That is correct, yes.
Jaleel saved an entire generation, a whole family line.
That's it.
Amazing. I'd like to move over to Renee, again, our senior hospital services specialist. Renee, can you explain how Live On New York is notified of a death? And let us know, do you get any info on the family prior to meeting them? I know this is not your primary function, but I know you've had some experience in it. If you could shed some light on it, that would be great.
Sure. And thank you all for having me here on this panel this afternoon. So as per CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, every patient that passes away within a hospital has to be referred to the local organ procurement organization for that hospital. And for the hospitals in the greater New York metropolitan area, that would be Live On New York. So that's how we are aware of potential organ or tissue donors. Any patient that cardiac arrest and passes away in the hospital must be referred to Live On New York within a certain time frame, as well as those patients who are on the mechanical vent and imminently passing away. As far as the notification to us, we do have the HIPAA privilege of asking certain questions about the patient and or the family. names, addresses, family dynamics, things of that nature. And we are able to ascertain this information from the hospital staff because we are HIPAA privileged with each of the hospitals that we work with.
Thank you. Dr. Jones, after hearing Renee's account of the initial process, was this familiar to what you experienced when your 5-week-old grandson, Jaleel, was being considered as a potential organ donor?
No, this, what Renee said was very new to my ears. I did not know how they were contacted or how they knew what was happening with Jaleel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I did not.
Minister, what was it? Can you give us just very briefly how the initial approach was?
Yes, we were approached by a young man named Fred. I still remember what he looks like and his first name because he just impacted us so much. So we were sitting in a room. It was my daughter and myself. And he came in and he just sat down and he started talking. And he was so very empathetic. He had tears in his eyes. And I have to say that that was exactly what was needed. We needed someone not to come in and say, or hand us a brochure and say, have you thought about, and just pop, pop it out like that. We really needed someone to come in and be with the family. And so he was. And in that short period of time, I really felt like he was a part of our family and a part of the decision-making process. And again, I'll never forget him because he was just amazing in what he did. I laughingly called him the angel of death. I really did, but he felt so calming to us. It wasn't a bad situation at all. And I think because of his approach, we were more easily able to help Katrina make that decision.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to divert really quickly from flow of questions. Renee, can you touch on what your experience has been, the times that you've had to approach a family? Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes, I always want to stress to families that I work with or situations when I'm educating the hospital staff that we are there to support the family. That's first and foremost. This mom, this dad, this husband, this wife, this child of the patient, they're in a very bad position at that moment and they need that support. One thing about Live on New York that I do love is that we are able to sit with this family the whole day if need be and give them that support. Whereas in other entities within the hospital may not be able to do that, we can do that. We can sit with them all day, check in with them. If they need space, we can give that to them. Other resources, we're able to help them with that. I think that's very important. And that's one thing I do like to stress is making sure our families are heard, understood, and feel comforted by not only the hospital, but Live on New York as well.
Right. Renee, in that same vein, and making sure that the family is heard and feeling comforted, the instances where you've had to deal with concerns for faith, what is Live On's general practice when addressing these types of concerns?
Well, one of the things we always try to do and instruct families to do is to consult their religious leader, whomever that person may be, because a lot of times there's misconceptions about donation as far as religion is concerned. And so we want the family to feel comfortable, and we do encourage them to speak with their religious leader and get more information on that. In situations, there are times when we also educate families around the religious belief of whatever their loved one may have been practicing, and we provide information that way. But as I said before, we always want to encourage them to seek out the information themselves from their religious leader.
Awesome, thank you. Minister Jones, as a man of faith, you were originally against Jaleel becoming an organ donor. Why? And what changed your mind? Did your faith play a part in your decision?
Absolutely not. What played a part in my decision was my daughter. And I could just give you the picture. I was not there the day before when my wife and Katrina met with Fred. I didn't know who Fred was. All I do know is that the following day, my daughter was down and out, and I took her, as Katrina calls me, Papa Bear. I was in my Papa Bear mode and walking her around the hallway, just consoling and hugging and holding hands and talking, trying to make her laugh. And then comes this person coming into my space. And he said hello to Katrina, and he said hello to me, and I said hello with a stink eye on him. Said, hi, how are you? And then he started talking to Katrina. So Katrina, I just wanted to talk to you again about, becoming a donor. And I looked at him and I almost said a few explicit words, but I do know I said, hail. And as I was about to go into my tangent, my 18-year-old daughter just looked at him and said, of course. And that calming voice or spirit that my wife just described exuded through Katrina. And I had to step back and say, yo, who is the parent here? Or who is the mature adult here? Then I got some information about what happened prior to. So then I said, okay, so you all kept me out of the whole thing here. Just caught me off guard. But the best decision ever in life, it was. So was it my religion? It was not. And mind you, of course, I'm a minister. Mind you that I checked yes on my driver's license at 15, that I do want to become a donor. But at that moment, it wasn't the time I wanted to hear because I was in Papa mode at that time.
Right. Dr. Jones, as a reverend, I direct this question to you. And going through everything that you went through, how would you now counsel those who may be struggling with this decision as it relates to abiding by perceived and or actual religious practices?
I think there are a lot of misconceptions in most religions about organ donation. Right behind that is cremation, those two top subjects. And so I wouldn't do any differently. I just counsel the family and let them know that there is nothing wrong with organ donation. In fact, our religion is Christianity. And so Christians are meant to love their neighbors as themselves, right? And we talked about this before with Minister Phil as well, about the fact that would you receive a donation, right? And so if we would receive a donation, we would also want to give a donation, right? Because we're loving our neighbors as ourselves. Christianity is very practical and responsible. And so there are many scriptures in the Bible. James 1:27 is one of them that talks about your outward expression of what's inside your heart. And so what could be a better, test, right, of having an inward peace and an inward purity than to be able to offer this to someone. Right. And then also what's really important to me is I felt like in Jaleel's case that Jaleel living on in other people was a healing process for us. So it's not only healed the recipient and the recipient's family, but it's the first step of being healed in your own family if you are the donor family. So I would encourage them, most denominations and religions that I saw, I did some research before this, and most of them do not have a problem whatsoever with organ donation. And I think we just need to spread that word a little bit better than we have been.
Awesome. Thank you. And you actually answered my next question, which was, in your journey to becoming a reverend and a doctor of divinity, did you come across any policies that would prohibit organ donation and transplantation within communities of faith?
None whatsoever. None whatsoever. And I think, because it's such a personal, God gave us these bodies. We're the temple of the Holy Spirit. And so rightfully so, people want to make sure that they're doing the right thing. But because of lack of information, they assume, oh, this is such a personal thing with my body and God gave it to me that we can't share.
Right.
But we can.
Right. Renee, how common are these cases where religion is the main factor for non-consent?
It happens quite often. I don't have exact percentage for you, but it is one of the top, I would say, 3 reasons why families say they don't want to donate. And as you know, Reverend Dr. Jones stated, the lack of education, the lack of information about religion and what is and isn't acceptable within a particular religion. And we try our best to educate around that. As I said before, we do try to divert people to speak to their own religious leaders, but it happens a lot, unfortunately.
All right. Minister Jones, especially now hearing that, is organ donation and or end of life planning a common discussion in houses of worship? Why or why not?
It is not a common discussion, and it should be. And the reality is that in most houses of worship, especially those of color, we all know someone that's on dialysis or receiving something right now. And at first they said, we're waiting for my loved one to receive a kidney. Well, there's only 2 ways you're going to get one, either by a family member or someone had to transition on. And if that person did transition on, my question to you, will you not accept that kidney because that person transitioned and wants to donate that to you? Or would you accept that? Because if that's the case, then you're saying that you're not going or you don't believe in giving away or being a donor. It negates itself.
Mhm.
So I think when we bring it home that way, because we all know someone that knows somebody that's gone through that, and we don't think about how this one receives this piece. We're just excited that we have a few more years with that loved one because they did have that kidney donation.
Definitely, definitely. Given what you know now, would you, and I know the answer, I know what the answer is, but I'm going to ask anyway. But given what you know now, and especially some of the information that Renee has shared, would you make the same decision again to support your daughter in organ donation?
Yes, I would for sure, without a doubt. Even more so,
Awesome.
sharing Jaleel's story, because I have not said Jaleel's name so often over the past 20 years, and recently to now, I have not said a word about Jaleel. But when we talk about this 4-paragraph biography of this little boy and all the lives that it has touched, it amazes me on how people respond. And even though, so you know that they at one time or another, they may have thought differently about this here, that little child right there has just has the gift that keeps on giving. And I love telling his story. And every time I tell a story, it's a different chapter that comes out of this 43-day-old biography. So it amazes me. And the responses I get from people, I want to go home and share this with my family members, with my friends about Jaleel.
Right.
So as long as I keep on saying, I'm going to keep on telling the story about him.
It sounds like this experience has had really an amazing effect on you as a father and as a minister.
Oh, most definitely.
And a husband.
And a husband and whatever. I mean, it is, I can't even, I enjoy speaking on it. And every time I talk about it, I get emotional, and I'm very passionate. As you all know, my story about Jaleel can go on for at least a good 45 minutes. So it's tough to hold myself in. There has to be a part 2 and 3.
Sound bites.
I'm trying my best to do it, to hold back, but
right.
It is amazing.
Thank you. Well, as we begin to wrap up our discussion, I would like to give each of you guys an opportunity to maybe shed some insight or feedback. So Dr. Jones and Minister Jones, and you know what, and I will go to Renee. As a senior member of Live On New York's hospital services team, a very well-respected member of this organization, what would be your advice or feedback to Dr. Jones and Minister Jones on how to best address the realities of donation and transplantation with those that they serve in the faith community?
Well, first, I want to thank both Reverend Dr. Jones and Minister Jones for your support of organ donation and all that you've done throughout the years to help lift up others in their time of need, regardless of what that need was. Thank you for that. As far as speaking to those who you're serving, your congregation or elsewhere, I would definitely ask that you encourage people to talk about these things before their loved one ends up in the hospital. I always tell the hospital staff that I work with, I'm not here to convince anyone to be an organ donor or to be a tissue donor. I'm here to educate you so that you, the hospital staff, and you, the families, and you, the community, know what donation is, so that if and when you're ever placed in that position, you have a better understanding of it. So if it's possible, encouraging the congregation, encouraging the communities to think about donation, to make their wishes known to their family. They may not actually sign up to be a donor, and that's their prerogative to do or not do, but at least have the conversation with their family to let them know what they would want at the end of life. And also to get more education on donation and not just, fall into the myths and misconceptions that are out there, but to actually speak with someone who is aware of it, who's educated on it, to get the proper information to make that right decision at the end of their life.
Definitely. Thank you, Renee. And I actually would like to piggyback on that. As a community and government affairs liaison here at Live on New York, the issue of religion definitely comes up very often. It is one of the top reasons why folks are declining to become organ donors, to sign up. Having the opportunity to come into the houses of worship and educate the parishioners, educate the staff and the clergy, you two have taken an enormous step, and we would like for you to help us to get in through these doors so we can share this information. And as Renee said, to dispel these myths and misconceptions about organ donation. There are so many sensationalized stories that are just flat out not true about organ donation as it relates to the heavily federally regulated process that we participate in here in the United States. There's so many myths and misconceptions that we need to dispel, and we could definitely continue to use your help to do that. And with that said, I would like to extend that question to the two of you, Dr. Jones and Minister Jones. As a faith leader in your community, what would be your advice or feedback to Live on New York on how to best address this barrier to donation?
Well, thank you for having us. And we definitely, both of us have discussed it, that we're in it for the long haul, and any help that you all need, we're here. I think just lifting up the voices and actually going out to different churches and asking them to form a ministry around it. So sometimes you go to churches and you say, Live on New York, we're here to talk about it. But have you really asked the question, who's interested, and do you want to lead this charge, basically? That's what I would do. Also, when I was pastoring, just 6 months ago, I was pastoring, we used to always have estate planning, financial planning, aging planning. Yes. Never once did we mention organ donation. Right. And I think that's a perfect place to put that into that whole cycle of what we're doing.
Perfect place for it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you both have any advice for your colleagues, for the faith community in total, that may be watching this segment? Do you have a call to action for them?
I think for me, so my denomination is Presbyterian, and we have a big PCUSA website that has what we believe in, so forth and so on. And I think if we go all the way up to the top, as opposed to the local congregation, that could also be helpful. So placing things on the PCUSA website would trickle down to all of the congregations, so forth and so on. Besides that, definitely reaching out to every minister in our presbytery or whatever church it is, to say, one, have you thought about it? Have you preached on it as well? I had the opportunity when Katrina came to our church to actually preach about giving. And it's not only money, it's, giving in general. So have you preached on it? Have you taught Bible studies on it? Even having a curriculum specifically for ministers to teach about organ donation is a pretty, for me, pretty easy thing that ministers could do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Minister, did you have anything?
Well,
to
I was going to say,
add?
I'm in sales, and normally whenever I want to get something done on a bigger scale, like I go to the top, and whatever that top person tells the people below to say and do, they will do it. And especially in churches, if there is the bishop, you have the bishop councils, and then whenever they have that ministry or that plan of action for the following year, all the pastors are supposed to do these steps, and they should do it, because if you want to, at certain church, if you want to stay at that church the next year when it's time to be called back, you have to make sure that certain steps are being handled the way that that bishop wants it handled. So I would definitely, as Reverend Jones said, let's stop top down and work it down that way. And then believe me, it will sprinkle across the board. And hearing everyone's story to the bishop's council, because it's so important right now to spread the word some kind of way.
Definitely. Well, we are at the end of our segment. I would like to, Don, we have not heard from you. If you have any, I know you're relatively new to the Live on New York family, but please feel welcome. I'd like to give everyone a minute or 30 seconds or so just to give some closing remarks before we wrap it up.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing such a powerful story. I just have a question. If there's anything you would say to a person or another family who would potentially be in that situation, what would you say to them?
I'm going to direct that question to Dr. and Minister Jones.
What would I say to them if they had the potential to give life? Yeah, no, that's okay, because I've learned to do both sides, right? I would first say, as a minister, I would first have to say, seek God. I would just really give them the information. And because even after you give people the information, it's still their decision. And we try not to strong arm people. So prayer, basically. And I would pray with them and just, try to figure out what's on their heart. Also, answering questions, I think, is really important, because people will have questions, even besides, is it legal to do? Is it ethical to do? There's still other questions that come up from people's stories. So listening, praying, giving information.
And I would have to say that I would just have to tell our story. And that's the only way I could go about it. Of course, initially praying and everything, but when you tell someone's story, it's like going out there saying, don't go out there being a drag addict or don't drink alcohol, and you're preaching in front of the pulpit. And a lot of folks, especially the millennials, well, you haven't done it, been there. Why should I listen to you? Well, we've been there and done that. And we know the struggles you're going through right now. But let me tell you what the just reward is on the other end. And I think we heard a story of those who received was a recipient of an organ, but you don't hear many of the stories of those like ours 22, 23 years later, and how we are still sharing the story and how it's still impactful as if it was day one. So I think sharing that story, and also like Reverend Jones said, to sit there and consult in your own private closet and praying is important. Get your own answer.
Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Jones. Thank you, Minister Jones. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Don. Thank you to Juneteenth NYC. Thank you to Emoja Events for allowing Live on New York the platform to spread this information, to share this absolutely amazing and moving story that is still changing lives 20 plus years later. Please check out Live on New York. We are doing so much to move the needle in this industry, in this field. As I mentioned earlier, we're doing it alongside our hospital partners, our amazing staff. As I said earlier, we are one of Crane's 2022 best places to work in NYC. If you want to become an organ donor, if you want to get more information about becoming an organ donor, please visit our website at Live On New York. That's LIVEONNY.org. You can register to be an organ donor right on our site. You can find out what we're doing, events we're hosting. You can look and see, we are doing lots of hirings. You can check out and see what positions are available, but please stay connected. If you want to volunteer your time, you can volunteer. You can sign up to be a volunteer on our website. You can follow us on social media at LIVEONNY on all social media platforms. But again, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this video. It most definitely will change or save a life one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Shawnee. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
All
you
right.
for inviting us.
Jaleel was born on August 4th of 2000. September 11th of 2000, he stopped breathing. We don't know why, we don't know what happened. One of the advocates from Live on New York came in and he asked if we were interested in donating his organs, and my dad instantly said no. And usually at 18, I'm a daddy's girl. I follow everything he said. But for some reason, this time I turned right around and I said yes. My spirit told me different. And I'm so glad I followed my spirit and my heart on this one. He saved a 2-month-old baby boy with his heart, and he saved an 11-month-old baby girl with his liver. If you can imagine a 5-week-old baby, there's not much you can do. There's no memories that we were able to share or had one picture of him. Organ donation gave me a story to tell about my baby. I miss my baby every day. There's not a day that goes by that I do not think about him. But right after that thought is he saved 2 babies' lives. Once the crying is over and the pain has kind of subsided, you'll never forget, but you'll have a sense of you can kind of stand up a little bit taller and just not so sad and depressed because, like, he left a legacy. I am absolutely proud of my son Jaleel for saving lives through organ donation.